And in the Impact segment tonight, the dramatic Muslim invasion that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. As we reported last night, many Americans are angry about the U.S. economy, which is not providing enough good jobs, and about all the chaos overseas. Both of those things can be placed at President Obama's doorstep. Since Ronald Reagan declared amnesty for illegal aliens in 1986, estimates are as many as 15 million undocumented people who did not get amnesty have crossed into the USA. As Donald Trump points out over and over, the southern border is a joke. Now the same thing is happening in Europe. Countries are being overrun by migrants, mostly Muslims, fleeing terror and economic deprivation in the Middle East and North Africa. These poor people are desperate and deserve sympathy from all of us. But the cold truth is, Europe is getting what it deserves. In the face of Islamic terrorism, the EU, not an equal partner with America. It lets us take most of the casualties and pay most of the bills. If a combined Europe had stepped up in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria the way it should have, those conflicts would have been contained. A well-coordinated American-European power push would have crushed the jihadists a long time ago and would have badly damaged Iran as well. But Europe has basically sat it out. Thus, it was left to Presidents Bush and Obama to manage the Middle Eastern mess, and neither man could do it. President Bush lost control of the Iraq War, and President Obama has made things even worse. Let's begin in October 2011, when the brutal dictator Gaddafi was killed in the Libyan uprising.
Today, the government of Libya announced the death of Muammar Gaddafi. This marks the end of a long and painful chapter for the people of Libya, who now have the opportunity to determine their own destiny in a new and democratic Libya.
But the Libyans did not get any opportunity to do anything because Europe and President Obama got the hell out of that country as fast as possible, leaving Islamic militias to run wild. Now hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing the chaos in Libya and coming through Libya. Just 2 months after the Gaddafi announcement you just saw, President Obama removed all American troops from Iraq. Our forces were providing stability and were keeping Iran from dominating Iraq. Nevertheless, Mr. Obama pulled the troops out.
Now, Iraq's not a perfect place. It has many challenges ahead. But we're leaving behind a sovereign, stable, and self-reliant Iraq with a representative government that was elected by its people. We're building a new partnership between our nations.
In hindsight, that statement is ridiculous. As soon as our troops left Iraq, the Iranians moved in, persecuting the Sunni minority, who then allowed ISIS to take up residence. So Iraq, along with Syria, became ISIS strongholds. That was perhaps President Obama's biggest foreign policy mistake. Then, in 2013, Mr. Obama learned that Syrian dictator Assad was using poison gas to kill civilians, innocent people. Mr. Obama threatened Assad with military action, and Europe should have immediately supported that. But the European leaders did nothing, and Mr. Obama backed down.
So even though I possess the authority to order military strikes, I believed it was right, in the absence of a direct or imminent threat to our security, to take this debate to Congress.
Of course, Congress didn't do anything. And ISIS gained power in Syria, murdering thousands of people along the way. Now, millions of Syrians are fleeing their own country, heading for Turkey and Europe. So you can see, a combination of cowardice and bad policy has led to one of the biggest mass migrations in history. In Europe right now, the crisis is so intense, the entire European Union may collapse. Eastern European countries like Hungary and Poland do not want to take any Muslim refugees. Countries like Denmark and the Netherlands also don't want any migrants. Even Great Britain and Ireland say they will take very few. So where are these people going to go? Germany's being overrun. Remember, migrants must be supported. Governments must house and feed them. It will take decades before the migrants assimilate into European societies, if they ever do. And this mass migration is not going to stop. Once people in Africa find out they can move to Europe without consequence, millions will begin to do so. So the next human wave will come from the African continent. Meantime, Europe has no solution, and President Obama will not even acknowledge his drastic foreign policy mistakes. You want a worldwide mess? You have one. Finally, hundreds of thousands of migrants will eventually find their way to North America. It's just a matter of time. So here's the bottom line. If the USA and Western Europe continue to blunder in the face of the jihad and tolerate brutal dictators like the Iranian mullahs, the world will devolve into continual conflict and humanitarian disaster. There's no question about it. And that's the memo. Plenty more ahead as the Factor moves along this evening. Colonel Ralph, personal story segment tonight, as I believe I have made very clear, a combination of European cowardice and awful American foreign policy has led to a mass Muslim migration that will affect the entire world. Joining us now from Washington with his view of the situation, Fox News strategic analyst Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. What say you, Colonel?
Well, first of all, I think you are much, much too soft on President Obama and a bit too hard on the EU. If America doesn't lead, it doesn't happen. And just look at a map of the Middle East on the last day, on George W. Bush's last day in office. There is broad peace across the Middle East and North Africa. Iraq was finally convalescing. And as you pointed out, Obama promptly, to please his America-hating base, abandons Iraq, backs the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, gets rid of Gaddafi without a plan for what goes after, threatens Assad, he's got to go, then does nothing, draws red lines, does nothing, doesn't listen to the intelligence community when for years they're warning him about Islamic State coming. Then he tries to blame the intelligence community, launches feckless airstrikes. The combination of his fecklessness and cowardice, his rhetorical bravado and utter incompetence are responsible. What the spectacle you're seeing, those refugees, the hundreds of thousands of refugees, the millions in the camps, they're Obama's refugees. The hundreds of thousands of dead in Syria and Iraq and elsewhere, they're Obama's dead.
Well, wait a minute.
Oh, by the way, no, listen to this. The 2,000 years of Christian civilization destroyed on his watch. That's on Obama.
Okay,
if
hold
America
it, though.
doesn't lead, nothing happens.
Well, here's where I disagree with you. And obviously, I couldn't have been harder on President Obama's foreign policy than I was in the Talking Points memo. The European Union didn't help us from the jump, all right? Germany, you know this, sent no troops to Iraq, very few to Afghanistan, whining all the way, all right? Great Britain did some. They did the most. Australia, but they're not part of the Union, they did some. But France, lately they've been better, but in the beginning they were an enabler of Saddam Hussein. They stood by, they being the European Union, and watched all of this stuff happen that you just outlined, okay? If they had given Obama any support at all to go after Assad, I believe he would have. But Obama did not want to go it alone. He didn't want to go up against Putin. But if Merkel and France and Britain had said, you know what, buck up, Barack, you got to get rid of this guy. You got to go in and bomb him. He would have. I really believe that. I really believe that.
I just disagree. I absolutely don't agree. And by the way, I'm still not sure I really want a heavily remilitarized Germany. But even beyond that, what
they
we're
can
seeing
help
so
out.
far,
it's a wealthy nation. They can
yes,
help out with money. They can help out a lot of ways. They didn't do anything.
Look, we're doing a post-mortem on what's happened to date. And we see the horrible pictures from Europe and elsewhere, and there's a backstory on that. But there's a lot more to come with Putin moving to the Middle East, with Iran on the loose now, because they know Obama will
there's
do
another
nothing
thing.
to
Why doesn't
jeopardize
Europe
his treaty.
stand up against Iran? Why doesn't Europe stand up against the mullahs? They never do. They
Because
never do.
we don't, yeah, you're right. But if we don't set the pace, nothing will happen. And by the way, two things: the media reports. They're playing heavily on all these refugee families and a dead child. Look at the broad, wide-angle lens pictures. Most of the people flooding into Europe are young military-age males from the Middle East who won't fight to fix their own country. They have no right to asylum in Europe, none whatsoever. Go back to Syria and fix it. Fight and fix your country. And the second thing is the media is missing this. Most of the countries that are most vociferous against accepting refugees, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania. These are countries that suffered for centuries
and
under
they can't afford
Muslim
it
Ottoman
anyway.
Turk rule.
They can't
They're
afford
poor.
it.
Yeah, but Germany tried to pull a fast one because Germany is a graying population. They need workers. They thought they'd get points for humanitarianism. Now Munich is overrun. They can't handle it. And watch, Oktoberfest is going to be a hoot this year.
That's pretty nasty. But wait till you see what happens in Africa.
Really? It is.
Wait till you see what happens in Africa.
Yes,
wait till you
I
see.
agree.
That's the next one. All right, Colonel, very provocative, good debate. We appreciate it when we come right back.